Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Rob and Rob. Welcome to Ask Rob and Rob. It's the show where we answer your property questions. And the show, of course, starts with you. So we like to make it really simple for you to send your questions our way.
We do. Head over to propertyhub.net/ask. That's propertyhub.net/ask. There, you can leave us a message. You can call us and leave a voicemail if you prefer. Or if you want to write in with your question, we have our wonderful column in the Sunday Times each and every Sunday in the home section. So if you want to get your question in that way, you can as well. Let's kick off with a question in from Joe.
My name's Joe. Myself and my wife have 3 rental properties. They are each worth between 3 and 350. One of them's completely paid off. 2 of them have interest-only mortgages, about half the value of the house. They all get between 1,000 and 1,200. We'd like to start using some of that equity, either selling some of the houses, we're not sure which one, or taking equity to develop properties, sell properties, flip properties ultimately. We're wondering what you would recommend, how best to go about it, if it's a good time to do it, and what sort of end of the market to go in at, how much we would be looking at making each property, and anything really, any kind of advice at all would be brilliant, because, I'm looking at potentially either leaving my job or else going part-time. Okay, thank you.
Joe, thanks for your question. Now, this will all come down to your goals. Yes, I'm sure long-time listeners will have already started shouting out the answer to this one, because it depends on what you want. Do you need to do any of this? And that will really help you. It may not sound like a satisfying answer to begin with, but there's value to this. Once you get very clear on your why, your goal, you can then take better action. So at the moment, you're making income from your properties. That's great. Are you income driven? Is that the goal? Are you doing this to create a pension pot? Are you doing this as a legacy play? Whatever it is, that's great. Turn that goal into a number. So if it's income, you want to earn 5k a month, whatever it might be, pension pot, what the overall value of the portfolio needs to be. But once you've done that, then you can make a decision whether you need to do anything at all. She might be in a good place already, or whether you need to take action. Now, when you take action, what should you do? Should you sell, or should you take some of the equity? Now, if these properties are well-behaved properties, then I would keep them as they are, because it's hassle selling properties that are doing well for you. And you've also got transaction costs to take into consideration as well. So look at the portfolio and decide, am I happy with these properties in my portfolio? Am I happy with the type of tenants they're attracting? Am I likely to do any major works on these properties in the next few years? If you're satisfied with the answers to those questions and you're happy to hold. So then that would leave you with the equity question, which is probably the most effective way to invest if you're happy with the portfolio. And how you do that is really simple. You just look at the rate you'd be borrowing at. So let's assume roughly 5%, which I think is more than achievable in this current market. You take that 5% borrowing costs, and then when you look at investments, it needs to be returning more than 5% to you. Now, that might not be achievable in the area you're investing in at the moment, but it's certainly achievable in large parts of the country, and you can do a lot better than 5% as well. So if you choose an investment that gives you more than a 5% return, because that's what it's costing you to get in, that's how much it's costing you to use the money, then you are up. And you then hopefully will get the bonus of capital growth on top as well. But we're not accounting for that. And you shouldn't put that into your calculation. See that as a beautiful cherry on top of the cake rather than the reason for doing it. That for me is the most effective way to invest in your situation. But decide whether you need to invest, decide the number you need to get to, and that will better dictate all of your decisions moving forward. Good luck.
Okay, let's have our next question now from Ed.
Hi, Rob and Rob. Ed here. I want to say thank you for everything that you put out there. It certainly helped me on my property journey from accidental landlord to building up a portfolio. And in building that portfolio, I've started to purchase properties within a limited company and following the same strategy that you guys seem to go with, which is buying high-end properties. And my questions around that. I've come across something called annual tax on enveloped dwellings. Hopefully I've said that right. It's a bit of a tongue twister. I'm a bit confused by it all, to be honest. So I'm just looking for a bit of clarity on it. It seems to be clumped into 5-year periods where by the start of the 5-year period, you need to revalue the property and you may or may not be due to pay tax on that. I also find a little bit of conflicting information online about if you are purely a buy-to-let landlord, so you let out the property to a tenant. Some places seem to think that you would be able to claim relief on that. Some don't. And it might catch people out, especially with this growth period. They might find that they have a property that's triggered over this £500,000 kind of low value, which has come down over the years. And even if, as landlords, we can claim the relief, we do seem to have to put in a return every year. It looks like a small window from the 1st of April to the end of April where the return has to be put in advance, even if there is relief. So yeah, I'm just interested to find out what your thoughts on this are as standard buy-to-let landlords, what our responsibilities are, even if it is just put in a return and claiming relief on that property. And just a bit of an explanation of this 5-year chunks, because I think, having bought since 2022, I think I don't need to do anything until the 1st of April 2027, where then I need to revalue the property. And if it has gone over 500,000, every year do a return for that property. Just interested to hear your thoughts and what our responsibilities are as landlords. Thank you.
Ed, I believe this is a podcast first. How have we gone this far without talking about the annual tax on enveloped dwellings, or ADED if you're not a fan of tongue twisters? This is something that investors have started to encounter more and more because it applies only to properties that are owned by companies. And of course, that used to be fairly niche, but now the vast majority of investors that we work with buy within companies. So I'll do the good news bit first, which is, first of all, it only applies to properties worth more than £500,000. So that wipes out the vast majority of buy-to-lets. But the really good news is if you just rent your property out to a tenant who you're not related to in any way, like the vast majority of people do, then you will never have to pay this tax. The bad news is if you own a property worth more than £500,000, even if you don't have to pay the tax, you still have to file an annual return showing that you own the property, but you don't have to pay the tax. Otherwise, as always with matters of tax, there'll be a fine to pay. So, Ed, thank you for asking the question, because this is something that you will have made people aware of that otherwise they would have been completely ignorant to. And for me, it shows the importance of working with a really good accountant, because this is something that they should be all over. So every year in March, April time, my accountant contacts me and asks me if I have any properties that qualify. They remind me of the criteria and the valuation deadlines and things like that, which then gives them time to file the return if necessary. It's a part of the annual compliance rhythm. But obviously, if you are trying to do it all yourself, or you have an accountant who's not particularly on the ball, it's something that could get missed. So Ed, thank you for highlighting that. But again, I'll reiterate for anyone who's like, what, another tax? No, don't worry. If you're just renting out a property, regardless of the value, this is not one you'll ever have to pay.
Well, that's us done for another week. Thank you for listening. I hope you found that useful. You know what else will be useful? Tuning in on Thursday for the Property Podcast, because we got a great episode lined up for you there. And you can find us in the Sunday Times on Sunday. So until those wondrous events take place, take care, have fun. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.